Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to a very special edition of Strictly Sports Football Thursday, where tonight we are going to be previewing the New Year's Six bowl games, and on top of that, we will also preview Week 17 of the NFL. Hello, friends. I am your host, as always, Anthony Floyo, joined by good old MF Michael Fletcher, awaiting the presence of Michael Bullock. I sent him an invite. I don't know if he'll be with us or not. If he comes in, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we'll hopefully have him tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk. But for right now, New Year's Six bowl games, they're going to take the center stage here since they'll be starting before Week 17 of the NFL. And I'm sure MF will be okay with this when I decide on what I want to do with this. I want to save the college football playoff games for last because those are the most important.
No problem. I believe that the college football playoff deserves the main event spot. Just like the Sunday night, we'll have our main event spot on the football on the NFL side. So no, permission granted.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure on that. So, all right. So with that being said, we're gonna dive right on in and start it off with the New Year's Six bowl games, and we're gonna start it off with the first of our New Year's Six bowl games, which will be the Cotton Bowl, which will take place on Saturday. It'll be at noon, high noon on Saturday, from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. It will be the Cotton Bowl featuring. Now I don't know. Oh, okay, never mind. It'll be the number 13 Penn State Nittany Lions and the number 15 Memphis Tigers. Noon Eastern on ESPN. It'll be Bob Wischusen with Dan Orlovsky and Allison Williams. And Penn State is opening up as a 7.5-point favorite. Penn State finished second in the Big Ten East with a 7-2 conference record. A win in the Cotton Bowl would secure the Nittany Lions' third 11-win season in 4 years under their coach James Franklin, but only their third bowl win and second in the New Year's Six. Memphis, meanwhile, earned Group of Five representation for the New Year's Bowls by going 12-1 and winning the American Athletic Conference by beating Cincinnati in consecutive weeks. A win here would secure what is already the Tigers' best season in program history. This is the first meeting between Penn State and Memphis. The Nittany Lions are 2-0-1 all-time in the Cotton Bowl. This is the Tigers' first appearance in this bowl. The Tigers are 4-7 all-time in bowl games. Here are 3 things you need to watch for in this game. We're not going to worry about spreads and bowl and all that good stuff. Let's get right to the action. 3 things we need to watch for. Sean Clifford's accuracy. Clifford completed only 33 of 60 passes for 55% in losses against Minnesota and Ohio State. He only threw for 1 touchdown compared to 3 interceptions. He has 21 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in the Nittany Lions' 10 wins. How will he play against the Tigers secondary that allows 200.7 passing yards a game and 14 touchdowns to 10 interceptions all season? Penn State's pass rush. Penn State's 3 leading pass rushers, Yatir Gross-Matos, Shaka Toney, and second-team All-American linebacker Micah Parsons, have combined for 32.5 tackles for loss and 17.5 sacks this season. Memphis has allowed 21 sacks all season, or roughly 1.5 a game. If that trio can get after quarterback Brady White, they can adversely affect his impressive efficiency this season. He had 3,560 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And the third thing to watch for is Kenneth Gainwell's success. Gainwell, Sporting News' second-team All-American athlete, enters this game as the 8th best rusher in the FBS at 1,425 yards and 12 touchdowns. But he has only combined for 4 yards a carry in the Tigers' last 2 wins, both against Cincinnati. Considering he's going against one of college football's best rushing defenses, 2.6 yards per attempt. Coach Norvell will need to find more ways to get him involved in the offensive game plan. He also has 44 receptions for 532 yards and 3 touchdowns. Stat that matters: Penn State has the nation's 5th best rush defense, allowing 97.7 yards a game on the ground, and has only allowed 200-yard rushers all season. Against Ohio State's J.K. Dobbins, 157 yards, and Rutgers' Isaiah Pacheco, 102 yards. That doesn't bode well for Gainwell, who must be included in the Tigers' game plan in some way to keep them from becoming one-dimensional. Memphis should drop back to pass more than usual, meaning the offensive line must protect White against the Nittany Lions pass rush. And now for the prediction. Memphis will come out looking to get on the board early, so don't be surprised if Coach Norvell breaks out a couple of trick plays to catch Penn State off guard. That may work once or twice, but Memphis overall will be overmatched against both the Nittany Lions offensive and defensive lines. The Tigers will be within striking distance at halftime, but the offense, led by big games from Sean Clifford, receiver KJ Hamler, and running back Journey Brown, will fall away in the second half. I have Penn State winning the Cotton Bowl. My final score, 38-27, Penn State over Memphis. Nothing more to say, MF. Penn State and Memphis kicking off our New Year's 6 coverage with the Cotton Bowl on Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely, and I cannot wait to see that. It's going to be a great game, no doubt about it. Cotton Bowl Classic in Jerry World in Arlington, Texas, and this is going to be a very interesting game. I got to say, going into this battle, look, anytime you get a big team, a big conference versus little guy, like one of the non-Power 5, and a lot of people feel like Memphis might be the better team. 12-1 in the regular season, played great, had to beat Cincinnati twice, back-to-back weeks in their own house to win the conference title, which was very recommendable. Penn State, now, of course, you got to start looking at them as usual. Great team in the Big Ten, very good team that easily could have gotten a shot at a Rose Bowl, at something higher, but they did underachieve. Lost to Ohio State. We'll get into them later in the night. But they did handle their business. They beat Michigan. Barely by 7, but they won. They beat Michigan State, which is another threat that they had to run into. At the end of the day, you got to wonder, what is Penn State's mindset in this game? You know what the mission statement of Memphis is. Take down a Power 5 conference. Let the little guys know, hey, we're just as good as the big boys. We want to be the next UCF, or I should say, we want to be the next South Florida. We want to be the next Boise State. We want to be that team that takes down the juggernaut, and Penn State is a big school. We all know back in the day with Joe Paterno, who minus that Jerry Sandusky thing, and we're not going to revel in that. But Penn State was one of the most well-respected universities in college football, with Joe Paterno winning a national championship, I think, on 1 or 2 occasions. Not only that, but was one of the top colleges in the Big Ten Conference. So Penn State is no slouch. There's no doubt about it. Penn State is recognizable. If Memphis can go in there and knock Penn State off on Saturday afternoon, that would be a big statement for the Memphis Tigers. Probably even just as a bigger statement than their college basketball team making it all the way to the national championship game a few years ago, when unfortunately they lost to Kansas in the final, and that was a 5-star classic. But this is Memphis football's biggest moment. One of their biggest bowls ever, to be in the New Year's 6, where the spotlight is going to be firmly on them than any other day. College football will reign on Saturday. The whole world will be watching this game. And you are now in a prime time event. This is bigger than anything that you've done. Not as big as the New Year's Six. I mean, not as big as the college football playoff, but trust me, to be in the New Year's Six game, that's a huge moment for you and your university and the conference that you represent. $6 million we're talking goes to that university, that goes to the conference for making it to the New Year's Six. So what does that mean? We're just going to have to wait and find out. But I agree with you, Anthony. I got to go with Penn State. I just think that they're a better team. But trust me, Little Dog has a big chance to pull the upset. Remember what happened a few years ago? I kind of underestimated the Little Dog, and I got burned. So I'm not going to disrespect Memphis like I did a few years ago. Because I've always been about Power 5, that the Little Dog doesn't have a shot in the fight. Memphis is probably one of the most complete teams in this bowl game that I legitimately will say has a great chance of pulling the upset. They got a better chance than any other team that I've seen from the Little Dog going into this big fight. So I'm going to go with Penn State. But I would not be surprised if Memphis pulls off the upset. Anthony, back to you.
All right. The next two games, this is where the college football playoff semifinal matchups would have come into play. So we're going to put those on the back burner. And we're going to move on to the next available game, which will take place on Monday night. It'll be the Orange Bowl, my favorite of the bowl games right here. From Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, the number 6 Florida Gators and ACC runner-up Virginia will be meeting in that one. And Florida opening up as a 14.5-point favorite. This game will be Monday night on ESPN, 8 o'clock. And on the call for that one, it will be Steve Levy with Brian Greasy, Todd McShay, and Molly McGrath. So, Before I give it to MF, I just want to see if there's. Well, actually, they've only met once. They met once. It was in 1959 in Gainesville, and Florida beat down Virginia 55-10. Florida 3-0 all time in the Orange Bowl. Meanwhile, for Virginia, first ever Orange Bowl. So definitely the nerves will be getting in on Virginia. Florida though 3-0. So I'm at Florida and Virginia in my favorite bowl, the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, and you know what? I got to say, a lot of people kind of were a little surprised to see Virginia being the representative here. But you know what? They played in the ACC final, lost to Clemson, and I don't think a lot of people – this is probably the weakest of the non-4 that is, out of the New Year's Six. This is probably the weakest of the 4. Florida had a good year, no doubt about it. They were very respectable, but they never really took down the big dogs. Virginia, same thing. Surprised that they got to where they were. A lot of people didn't even have them on the radar. When the ACC started back in September, but some way, somehow, they were able to navigate through the minefield that was the ACC to make it to the championship game. But we all saw what happened. They got upended and got destroyed by Clemson, and that's why they got to where they were. But the committee felt like these two teams were deserving enough to get into this game and to get into the Orange Bowl in Miami. I mean, look, not a bad consolation prize for either team. To be in the New Year's Six is big. To play in the Orange Bowl, which is one of the biggest of the 4, like this is a national championship caliber venue that they have played in. To play in the Orange Bowl, to play in Miami, which has been the home of numbers of Super Bowls, including this year's Super Bowl is going to be in Miami, a number of national championship games. Miami will be hosting the national championship game, I think, within the next 5 years. I think it's going to be, in like 3 or 4 years from now. But to be in this game, to be here, hey, this is a nice consolation prize for both teams. Neither team was expected to make this big of a leap, this big of a jump to get here, but they're here. Congratulations to both teams. As far as the winner goes, I got to go with Florida. And you're literally playing it in your own backyard. You're going to be about maybe a couple of hours away, Gainesville to Miami. So you're going to have a big Florida contingent in that stadium. And I just feel like they're going to be more comfortable. They're more adapt, big game feeling for them. I think they're going to be well rested and well prepared for this game. I got Florida winning, and I'm in agreement with the stat line, but I think it's going to be a little more than that. My final score is 34-20. But I got Florida winning the Orange Bowl. Anthony, it is all yours.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But getting into the three things we need to watch for. Florida's pass rush. Florida has 46 sacks this season, ranking first in the SEC and fifth in FBS. That attack is led by Jonathan Greenard, who has a team-leading 15 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks. The Cavaliers have given up 38 hits this season, 2.9 a game. Yeah, 2.9 a game, bad enough for 11th most in college football. They'll need to stymie that pass rush if they want to have any chance of winning. Number two, Bryce Perkins' rushing ability. One way the Cavs can offset Florida's pass rush is with Perkins' rush ability. He has 745 yards and 11 touchdowns this season, which Virginia can use to take advantage of an aggressive blitz scheme. Florida might want to keep one man to spy Perkins to keep him from breaking long runs. And number three, Virginia's linebackers. Virginia's trio of linebackers, Charles Snowden, Zane Zandler, and Jordan Mack, have combined for 231 tackles, 29 tackles for loss, and 16.5 sacks. If they make life difficult for Florida's trio of running backs, LaMichael Pirine, Damian Pierce, and Emory Jones, 1,034 combined yards and 12 touchdowns, it could be up to quarterback Kyle Trask to lead the Gators' offensive attack. The stat that matters, Trask has completed 213 of 315 passes for 2,636 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He'll face a Virginia secondary that has allowed an average of 228 passing yards a game while giving up 22 passing touchdowns. The Cavs will need to force a few turnovers to limit the Gators' scoring opportunities, particularly in the passing game. And now for the prediction, Virginia will score a touchdown on the Cavs' first offensive series, which includes at least one big run from Perkins. Florida will settle in after that, allowing the Cavs past midfield on each of their next two drives without a score. Trask will get Florida on the board late in the first quarter, and the Gators will take a touchdown lead into halftime. It'll be all Gators from then on as the defense keys in on Perkins and Trask leads multiple scoring drives. So I agree with you, MF. I got Florida winning the Orange Bowl as well. My final score, 31-17. No question about that. So now we go from my favorite bowl game to MF's favorite bowl game. The granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. From the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. This will be next Wednesday, New Year's Day, 5 o'clock kickoff, which features the number 7 Oregon Ducks and the number 11 Wisconsin Badgers. The Ducks won the Pac-12 championship after a 37-15 victory against Utah. Quarterback Justin Herbert can improve his NFL draft stock with a big performance here, and coach Mario Cristobal can continue to push the Ducks back toward a college football playoff berth heading into 2020. This is a program back on the rise. Wisconsin remains the model of stability in the Big Ten West, and they earned the Rose Bowl bid after a 34-21 loss to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Star running back Jonathan Taylor needs 91 rushing yards to complete his second straight 2,000-yard season. The granddaddy of them all should be a showcase for both schools. So here you go. I don't really see a spread at the moment because I don't see anything. Hold on. It might actually be coming up here in just a moment. Wisconsin Wisconsin is a 3-point favorite in this Rose Bowl game, which will be on ABC. And, of course, the A team will be there. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit. And this game is so big, we need not one but two sideline reporters on this. Of course, the beautiful Maria Taylor will be there as well. And, of course, Tom Rinaldi will also be there as well. So here you go. All-time series, the Ducks and the Badgers have met 5 times since 1977, and Oregon won the last meeting between these teams in the Rose Bowl, January 2nd of 2012. That was a shootout that featured Wisconsin's Russell Wilson and Monty Ball and Oregon's LaMichael James and DeAnthony Thomas. The Ducks won that game by a score of 45-38. 3 things to watch for. Number 1, Jonathan Taylor's yardage. I mentioned Taylor's rush toward 2,000 yards, and he will take his shots at an Oregon run defense that allowed just 3.2 yards a carry this season. The magic number for Taylor is 150 rushing yards. The Badgers are 16-1 when he hits that number, with the lone loss coming to Penn State in 2018. Number 2, Justin Herbert's touchdowns. Herbert impressed against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game, and he'll try to do the same against the Wisconsin pass defense that allowed just 191.2 passing yards a game this season. The Ducks had a 7-1 record this season when Herbert threw for multiple touchdowns. Herbert had 4 different receivers with more than 400 yards, led by Johnny Johnson III, 55 catches, 818 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And number 3, edge rushers. Both teams have outstanding pass rushers who can wreck a game plan. How will Wisconsin's tackles fare against Kayvon Thibodeau, a freshman sensation who had 6.5 of his 9 sacks in Oregon's last 5 games? Sporting News second-team All-American Zach Bond led Wisconsin with 12.5 sacks and 19.5 tackles for loss. Watch the head-to-head matchups with Oregon's Penei Sewell, a Sports News first-team All-American who won the Outland Trophy. And the stat that matters, Wisconsin's passing attack is much different than Oregon's, but it comes with similar efficiency. The Ducks finished at 160.4 and the Badgers finished at 155.3. Jack Cohn had 17 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and he averaged 8.4 yards per attempt. He will take more deep shots than expected against the Ducks, and look for Quintez Cephas, 52 catches, 842 yards, and 6 touchdowns to be involved. My prediction: the Pac-12 had a 4-3 advantage against the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl since 2010, and this game should be played at the same furious pace as the last time they met. Herbert will hit a couple big passing plays in the first half to get Oregon going, but Wisconsin's offensive line will continue to plod away against the Ducks. Taylor breaks through with 2 long touchdown runs in the second half, and the Badgers hold in the fourth quarter for a Rose Bowl victory. So I am going with Wisconsin to win the Rose Bowl. Sorry, Eric Carrier, but I got to be honest here. I would not be surprised if Oregon won, though. Absolutely not. But I am going with Wisconsin to win this one. It'll be another 5-star classic. My final score, 38-34. Wisconsin wins the Rose Bowl and wins one for the Big Ten and MF. So nothing more to say. MF, come on in. I hope I've given you enough time to think about this one. After all, this is your favorite of the bowl games right here. The Rose Bowl, granddaddy of them all. How about it?
It's going to be a great game, no doubt about it. It's going to be a great battle. But like you said, Anthony, it's about Jonathan Taylor. He's absolutely going to be one of those guys that's going to really try to turn it up and everything else. And these two teams met in the Rose Bowl back in 2012, and Oregon won that game 45-38. So obviously there's a little bit of payback, a little bit of revenge on the minds of Wisconsin, knowing that they got that stigma and that loss. But like you said, Anthony, I think they're a lot more of a better team than they were a few years ago. They got a quality running back who's going to be a dominating force, to say the very least. So I'm with you on this one. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to go with Wisconsin to knock off Oregon and win the Rose Bowl. My final score is actually 31-24. So I think it's going to be a close game, hard-fought game. But I got Wisconsin coming out because I think Taylor's going to get at least 2 touchdowns in this game. I think he's going to get over 100 yards. and 2 touchdowns, and that's going to give them enough to get the win. So nothing more to say. Anthony, next game.
NMF will be starting off on this one, and it will be the New Year's nightcap, which will be the Sugar Bowl. The number 5 Made in Georgia Bulldogs, the number 8 Baylor Bears from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. 8:45 scheduled kickoff on ESPN. Sean McDonough, Todd Blackledge, Holly Rowe, they will have it. The spread favors
Georgia.
Yes, it does favor the Made in Georgia Bulldogs. Yep, it's a 5-point spread for Georgia in this one. The number 5 Made in Georgia Bulldogs, the number 8 Baylor Bears, and Georgia and Baylor. They met 4 times. They have met 4 times between 1972 and 1989, all in the regular season, with Georgia winning all 4 meetings. The Bears are 1-0 all time in the Sugar Bowl, winning its lone game against number 2 Tennessee on New Year's Day, 1957. Georgia is 4-6. Its last win coming in a 41-10 demolition of number 10 Hawaii on New Year's Day, 2008. So there's all the history there. So MF, Georgia, we know what they're capable of.
Oh, yeah.
But boy, oh boy, Baylor, man. They came out of nowhere. Can they take down the juggernaut that is the Made in Georgia Bulldogs?
That's a tough order. That's a tough call. But look, Georgia's vulnerable. Georgia is very vulnerable. I think they could do it. But the thing is with Baylor, I just don't think they got enough horses. Georgia is a legit team. They're very strong. They're very powerful. Look, I know a lot of people are giving them a lot of grief because of the way that they lost to LSU. I am not them. I don't think that was a hard loss. It was a bad loss, but I don't think it was that hard. I think they're going to bounce back. They got plenty of time to recover. Plus, with Baylor, they do good against any other team in the Big 12, but they ran into Oklahoma and got smacked twice. Oklahoma and Georgia has almost similar styles of offense and similar styles of attack. I don't think Baylor can hang with them. Georgia's going to win the Sugar Bowl, and that's what I got. So my prediction is Georgia wins. I got nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Georgia has secured a 3rd straight season with at least 11 wins under Kirby Smart, but still finished the 2019 season on a sour note, losing 37-10 to top-ranked LSU in the SEC championship game. A win there would have sent the Bulldogs to the college football playoff as the number 3 seed. Baylor is in a similar boat as the Bulldogs, barely missing the playoff with 2 losses to number 4 seed Oklahoma in the regular season and Big 12 title game by a combined 10 points. It may be little comfort for Sporting News Coach of the Year Matt Rule and company, but a win in the Sugar Bowl would set a Bears single-season record for wins at 12. 3 things to watch. Number 1, Georgia's energy. This time last year, a supposedly dejected Georgia team showed up in New Orleans and was manhandled by a Texas team everyone expected the Bulldogs to beat. The general consensus was that Georgia didn't want to be in the game since it wasn't in the playoff. A lame duck excuse that no longer flies in the playoff era. Well, the Bulldogs have a different outlook this time after an embarrassing defeat to LSU in the SEC title game. Number 2, Georgia rush attack versus Baylor defense. The Bears have been stingy on defense this year, impressive considering they play in the Big 12. But how will they fare against a Georgia rush attack that features DeAndre Swift, 1,216 yards, 6.2 yards a carry, and 7 touchdowns? Brian Herrien, 490 yards, 4.8 yards a carry, 6 TDs. And Zamir White, 316 yards, 5.2 yards a carry, and 3 TDs. Baylor gives up an average of 133.8 rushing yards a game, and the Bears will need to tighten up against Georgia if they don't want to be gassed in the 4th quarter. And number 3, Charlie Brewer's status. Brewer has been the focal point of the Bears offense this year, completing 227 of 348 passes for 2,950 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions all season. His status for the Sugar Bowl is unknown, however, after he exited the Big 12 championship with a concussion. His backups, Jacob Zeno and Jerry Bohannon, combined to complete 6 of 21 passes for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. If one of them ends up starting against Georgia, you can expect Kirby Smart to dial up the pressure in order to force a few errant throws. The stat that matters, Jake Fromm has been efficient this season. Not spectacular, completing 60.3% of his passes for 2,610 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. But in the Bulldogs' 2 losses to South Carolina and LSU, Fromm was 48 of 93, 51.6% for 520 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. If he struggles early against a Baylor defense that has given up 13 touchdowns and forced 17 interceptions, it could be a long game for the Bulldogs. For the prediction, Georgia and Baylor both know a thing about grinded out games, winning a combined 9 one-possession games. Expect things to start out slow as each team gets a feel for the other. Georgia will get on the board first before Baylor finds a way to tie it at halftime. It will be similarly tight in the second half with both defenses forcing turnovers, but Fromm will make enough plays to set up one last touchdown for Georgia's impressive rush attack that will seal a game that's closer than the score suggests. So I'm going with Georgia as well. I agree with you, MF. 34-23. Georgia beats Baylor to win the Sugar Bowl. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the main event of this portion of the show. Our predictions for the college football playoff semifinal matchups. And we are going to start it off with the game that will lead it off. Saturday afternoon, around 4 o'clock or so. I believe it's 4 o'clock. Yes, 4 o'clock Eastern time. It'll be the number 1 LSU Tigers and the number 4 Oklahoma Sooners, the college football playoff semifinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. On ESPN and on the call for that will be Sean McDonough with Todd Blackledge and 2 sideline reporters, not just Holly Rowe, but they're also going to have Laura Rutledge with them as well. So both sidelines will be covered in that one. And the spread favors LSU, obviously, to the surprise of no one. LSU opening up as a 12.5-point favorite. So can't say I'm surprised with that. So LSU led the nation in total offense, 554.3 yards a game, with the help of Heisman Trophy winner and Sporting News Player of the Year, Joe Burrow. The Tigers scored 47.8 points a game, 3rd nationally, and Coach Ed Orgeron has a roster flushed with All-American talent. That includes first-team Sporting News All-Americans Jamar Chase, Derek Stingley Jr., and Grant Delpit. The Tigers racked up 5 top 10 victories during the regular season. Oklahoma won a 5th straight Big 12 championship and is making a 3rd straight playoff appearance under their coach, Lincoln Riley. Heisman Trophy runner-up Jalen Hurts leads a talented offense that finished 2nd in the FBS in total yards, 554.2, and 5th in points a game at 43.2. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is a game breaker, and the defense improved under new coordinator Alex Grinch. Oklahoma, however, will be without starting defensive end Ronnie Perkins, as well as running back Raymondre Stevenson and receiver Trajan Bridges, who were suspended yesterday. There will be a surplus of first-round NFL talent on the field when these teams hook up. So here we go. The Tigers and Sooners split 2 previous meetings, both in the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma beat LSU 35-0 to cap a perfect season on January 2nd, 1950. The Tigers, however, returned the favor with a 21-14 victory in the BCS championship game on January 4th of 2004. 3 things to watch. Number 1, running quarterbacks. Hurts has 2 starts against LSU from his time with Alabama, and in a different scheme, he was a factor with his legs, averaging 17 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown in those 2 victories. If he has similar success against the Tiger defense and has allowed 119.6 rushing yards a game, the Sooners will have more success in the air. Oklahoma's rush defense isn't that much worse than LSU's at 132.1 yards a game. but Burrow can also be a factor with his scrambling ability. Burrow averaged 12.5 carries and 52.5 rushing yards in victories against Georgia and Alabama. Number 2, big play receivers. 5 players in this game had more than 40 catches this season. Oklahoma's tandem of Lamb, 58 catches, 1,208 yards, 14 touchdowns, and Charleston Rambo, 42 catches, 734 yards, 5 touchdowns, and LSU's Chase, 73 catches, 1,498 yards, 18 touchdowns, Justin Jefferson, 88 catches, 1,207 yards, 14 touchdowns, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 50 catches, 399 yards, 1 touchdown, whose status is unclear due to a hamstring injury. LSU's Terrace Marshall Jr., 37 catches, 545 yards, 10 touchdowns is yet another weapon. Burrow and Hurts will have more than enough opportunities to make big plays through the air. And number 3, Burrow in the moment. Burrow won the Heisman Trophy and has become the darling of awards season, especially after his emotional speech raised money for impoverished people in Southeast Ohio. Cam Newton in 2010 and Jameis Winston in 2013 led their teams to national championships after winning the Heisman Trophy, but those runs were before the college football playoff era. No Heisman-winning quarterback has accomplished that since. Burrow already rewrote the record book in the SEC. Can he be the reason why LSU reclaims its place atop college football? Stat that matters, Oklahoma ranked 129th in the FBS with 75.08 penalty yards a game this season. And the Sooners have the worst turnover margin among the playoff teams at -7. This team is capable of getting into a shootout with the Tigers, but a few turnovers and penalties could swing that in LSU's direction. Oklahoma must be better in both departments. And my prediction? The Sooners led Georgia 31-17 at halftime 2 years ago and trailed Alabama 31-10 last year. If the Tigers jump out to an early lead, then Oklahoma could be in trouble. LSU will put pressure on Hurts early after a few quick scoring drives, but the Sooners will respond and be within 1 score at halftime. Ultimately, it's a Hurts turnover in the second half that'll open the door for Burrow, and he will close it with a pair of touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. LSU wins in a shootout. I got LSU winning this semifinal game and moving on to the national championship on Monday night, January the 13th. LSU wins it. My final score, 41-31. LSU beats Oklahoma and moves on to the college football playoff national championship game. So nothing more to say. MF, LSU, number 1 LSU, number 4 Oklahoma. Who's going to the title game?
No disagreement with me on this one. I got to go with LSU as well. I think they're the most complete team of all the teams in the national championship situation. LSU is meant for the moment. Joe Burrow has become the darling of college football. A lot of people were talking about Alabama. A lot of people were talking about Tua Tagovailoa as the one. But no, it is LSU. It has been Joe Burrow. And all year long, they've been proving it time in and time out that they are the real deal, that they are the best of the best. And I think they're going to prove it again. Going up against Oklahoma, a very try and true team that's been very good, to say the very least, but I just don't think they have what it takes to hang with LSU. I think they'll hang with them for about a half, but I think at the end it is going to be LSU getting the job done, nailing this down, and ensuring themselves a date in the national championship game. Like you said, Anthony, 35-17 is my final score. I think they'll keep it close, but then at the end, it's going to be LSU dropping the hammer on Oklahoma and knocking them out and advancing. So LSU wins. Anthony, let's move on to the second game.
And this is the game that we will be doing, MF. This is the game that you wanted. I'd like to know about that in just a moment. I don't have an issue with it at all. I'm just very curious. But nonetheless, the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes, the number 3 Clemson Tigers, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl from State Farm Stadium, formerly University of Phoenix Stadium, Glendale, Arizona. 8 o'clock, the scheduled kickoff time on ESPN. And, of course, same 4 who will be at the Rose Bowl will be at this one as well. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, Maria Taylor, Tom Rinaldi. They will have it. And the series history, The Clemson Tigers, 3-0. Tigers have won all 3 matchups against Ohio State, and none of those experiences has been good for the Buckeyes. Sweeney led Clemson wins against Meyer led Ohio State in the 2014 Orange Bowl, 40-35, and 2016 Fiesta Bowl, 31-0. The first meeting between these teams, of course, saw Buckeyes coach Woody Hayes fired after punching Clemson's Charlie Bauman in a 17-15 loss in the 1978 Gator Bowl. Clemson opening up as a 2-point favorite with the line opening at 1. So here we go. MF, number 3 Clemson, number 2 Ohio State, who will join LSU in the championship game. And I'm very curious, why did you want this game, honestly?
I thought this was the better of the 2 matchups. I think it was more compelling. I think it was going to be a lot more exciting, a lot more closer. I just think that this battle was going to be a lot more better than LSU and Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong. I think the matchup was good enough, but I just feel like this was the one that I think is going to have more Shakespearean drama, have more of an exciting factor.
Fair
and
enough.
Plus, on top of that, this was the team. Ohio State for most of the year was considered the number 1 team in the nation, going up against the defending national champions.
That's right.
I mean, there's no way we could not have done this game. For me, at least for me, there's no way we could not have done this. So
great argument.
I mean, don't get me wrong. LSU and Oklahoma, it will be an interesting game, but it doesn't have what I call the it factor like what Ohio State and Clemson has. And I feel like this is going to be a more straight up matchup where I kind of feel like the other one's not really going to be that great. This one, I have a feeling, is going to explode and be a great game. Shakespearean drama with the finest, with the fittings of a national championship battle. And, in any other year, I feel like this should be the national championship game. But it's the national semifinal. It's a great matchup. And I truly believe that this is the game that we should cover. Now, as far as who I think is going to win. For the entire year, I have heard how great how Ohio State has been dominating, playing a great game, playing a great team, doing everything that they've been doing. But the thing is that the more you've been preaching about Ohio State, the less we've been talking about the defending national champions, Clemson. And, with great respect and certainty that they haven't been respected. They haven't earned the glory or the respect like they have in other years because of the fact that they struggled at the beginning. And we're like, this is not the Clemson team that we knew. This is not the same team that we've seen all year long. They're a shell of themselves. Trevor Lawrence was a shell of himself. He wasn't that dominating quarterback all year. Where they at? Where's this great Clemson team? Where is the national champions? I think we can openly say, Anthony Florio, in the last probably 5 games, they've shown up. Now they look like the national champions. They look like the team that nobody wants to face. And Dabo Swinney, credit to him, has been lighting a fire under the team all year long. They don't respect us. They don't care about us. The committee don't like us. They don't want us to win the national championship because we're not Alabama. We're not an SEC school. They disrespect us because we're in the ACC. So Dabo has already put in his players' head what we need to do to win the national championship. We got to take it to Ohio State. And we got to take it to whoever's in the national championship game. If that's Oklahoma or LSU, we got to take it to them and beat them down and show the committee that we are the number 1 team in the nation. Remember, we're the national champions, and you're not respecting us. Not one iota. That's the passion. That's the fire. And that's what I see in Clemson. For Ohio State, they're on a mission because for the whole year, everybody was like, well, the team's not going to be the same without Urban Meyer. The team's not going to be the same without Urban Meyer. When Justin Fields went through that transfer portal and wound up in Ohio State, they changed their fortunes in one found swoop. And all of a sudden, you got him, you got Chase Young, who is by far the best defensive player in college football right now. And you got yourself a recipe for possibly a national championship. Unfortunately, Ohio State, I think your run ends here because I'm going to go with the team with the hot hand. I'm going to go with the team that is the reigning, defending national champions. And until they prove me otherwise, I think they're going to win this game. And for me, this is the team. If this was earlier in the year, I would have said Ohio State all the way. But the way that Clemson's been playing lately, Anthony, there's no team in the Final Four that can stop Clemson. I'm sorry. You could throw Oklahoma. You could throw any team. Hell, you could even throw Alabama in this, and Clemson will beat them. They're that good. They're the most underrated number 3 team out there, and nobody's talking about them because we're all kissing the rear ends of Ohio State and LSU this entire year. Clemson knows that. Clemson's been hearing about it. The bulletin board is lit, and they're going to take it out on Ohio State. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to be real honest with you. This is going to be a great game. This is going to be Shakespearean drama. But I'm going to say it. Clemson has LSU's number. And even in previous bowl games, they've beaten them in the past. What makes me feel anything different about that prediction? 42-31. Clemson wins and advances to the national championship game. Anthony, it is all yours.
And that's why you're the Kirk Herbstreit to my Chris Fowler. So I'm going to be the Fowler right here and now. Ohio State led the nation in scoring offense, 48.7 points a game behind Heisman finalist Justin Fields, and tied for third in scoring defense, 12.5 behind Heisman finalist Chase Young. Ryan Day is 16-0 as a head coach and has freshened up the Urban Meyer model in Columbus. The Buckeyes are back in the playoff for the first time since a 31-0 loss to Clemson in this Fiesta Bowl in 2016. Clemson, the defending national champions, owns a 28-game win streak under Dabo Swinney. The Tigers ranked 4th in scoring offense, 46.5, and 1st in scoring defense, 10.6, and have a talented roster around quarterback Trevor Lawrence and running back Travis Etienne. So here we go. We already went down the overall series, so 3 things to watch for. Number 1, turnovers. As if both teams didn't already have identical scoring trends, each team committed 14 turnovers this season. Ohio State lost 13 fumbles, and Fields threw just 1 interception. Lawrence threw 8 of Clemson's 10 interceptions, and the Tigers lost 4 fumbles. Can Ohio State's loaded secondary, led by Sporting News All-American Jeff Okudah, come up with a few picks? Or will Clemson's defense, led by Sporting News All-American linebacker Isaiah Simmons, force a few fumbles? A +1 or 2 margin in the turnover battle could be the difference. Number 2, game-breaking backs. Ohio State's J.K. Dobbins had 100 carries for 540 yards and 7 touchdowns in the season-ending stretch against Penn State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The offense revolves around the junior running back Etienne. Well, Etienne finished with 1,500 yards even and 17 touchdowns on just 182 carries. The Buckeyes, 2.82, and Tigers, 2.96, allow fewer than 3 yards a carry. Which team gets on track? And number 3, what changed? The Buckeyes had just 215 yards and finished 3 of 14 on third down in the last loss to the Tigers. That prompted Urban Meyer to renovate the offensive staff and hire Ryan Day, who is now the head coach. Field should have more success throwing the ball downfield, but Clemson has allowed the fewest first downs in the FBS. Will the Buckeyes be able to move the ball at will? Here's the stat that matters. Has Clemson been tested? Not in the first quarter, where the Tigers have outscored opponents 170-17. How will Clemson respond if Ohio State, which outscored opponents 136-38 in the first quarter, gets off to a fast start? That first quarter will set the tone for what should be another playoff classic in the vein of the Alabama-Ohio State game in 2014. Sporting News' latest mock draft has a total of 5 players from Ohio State and Clemson listed in the first round, and that's not including Trevor Lawrence, the presumed number 1 pick in the 2020 NFL draft, or Justin Fields, who could challenge for that position. Which of those first-round players make the game-changing plays, Young or Okudah, Simmons, Etienne, or T. Higgins? This is a game where the big-time players must step up, and Clemson has been on this stage more times. It will be tighter than the last meeting, but Lawrence will make enough plays over the top to lead the Tigers back to the College Football Playoff Championship game. MF, you got it. You got this one right. I agree with you. I have Clemson winning this one as well. 5-star Shakespearean drama classic, no question about it. 34-30, Clemson beats Ohio State. And they will go up, and so that means we think it will be Clemson and LSU for the College Football Playoff National Championship. So that's really all there is to say on that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into week 17 of the NFL. And what we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to go rapid fire when it comes to games with no playoff implications. I mean, I'll do my best to get the numbers and whatnot, but at the same time, we'll only go into detail for the games that do have playoff implications, and that's really all there is to say on that. So we will also get into the playoff scenarios in those games. So that's all there is to say on that. So in no particular order, let's get into the games that we will get into here. Starting with the 1:00 games and then into the 4:25 games. And of course, the main event will be, of course, the game of the year, obviously. So I do apologize here. We got a pop-up video here, so I got to try to get rid of it. Okay, there we go. So here we are. Try to do this in the best order that I can. No particular order, obviously. So we're going to start it off with the game which will be at 1:00 on CBS. Go in order of the home teams here, alphabetical order by home teams, and my team will start it off. My Buffalo Bills, they're going to be hosting the New York Jets. Now, as you all know, Week 17 of the NFL, every game is a divisional game. So some of these games I'm dreading, to be honest with you. While a handful of these games are going to be exciting. Well, the main event is obviously going to be the most exciting, far and away the most exciting. But nonetheless, New York Jets, Buffalo Bills, they will square off at New Era Field in Buffalo, 1:00 Eastern on CBS. Buffalo opening up as a 1.5-point favorite. Now, as you all know, earlier this season, well, actually it was on opening day, as a matter of fact, week number 1, the Buffalo Bills overcame a 16-point deficit and beat the Jets 17-16. And that really set the tone for what ended up being another magical year, for maybe the most magical year for Bills fans in a long time. I mean, I have waited a lifetime to have a year like this again. I mean, so with that win, it added to, I believe Buffalo leads the all-time series when it comes to these two. And yeah, it added to their lead. It's now 62-55 in favor of the Buffalo Bills. But the Jets did win in Buffalo last year, 27-23. And the Bills last beat the Jets there 21-12. So So that's all there is to say on that. So I mean, I gotta go with Buffalo. I mean, now I am a little bit concerned because Buffalo is locked in to that number 5 spot in the AFC. So there's really really nothing to play for here. I mean, Buffalo could rest their guys, and I'm a little concerned about that. So but I do think that they might, I do believe I did hear that Buffalo might be playing some of their guys for a good majority of the game. And if that's true, then I definitely like our chances in this one. So I think it'll be a lot closer because here's the thing. The Jets have actually been playing halfway decent as of late. But then again, where was that at the start of the season? I mean, if they had done that more during the season, maybe we would have been talking about them as a playoff team. But who knows? Maybe this could be a team to watch for in 2020. I mean, it is a tough one to call, but the Bills are the easy pick on the surface. But as we've seen at times, the Jets are capable of pulling off surprise wins. And on top of that, Buffalo does not have much to play for in the regular season finale. No matter what happens, win or lose, Buffalo will be the 5th seed in the AFC. So more than likely, they're going to take it easy, resting at least a few starters in the process. But with that said, the Buffalo squad is still worth taking seriously and should have enough gusto to take down the Jets. So Jets will give the Bills a run for their money, but they'll still fall short. Buffalo goes into the postseason coming off a divisional win, while Gang Green gets a slightly better pick in the 2020 draft. Now, Josh Allen, that's the big question. It's unclear if he's going to play or not. Even if he sits it out, the Bills should be able to get something going against New York's inconsistent defense. But as for the Jets offense, I wouldn't be surprised if they were still stymied by the Buffalo defense. It's one of the best in the league. So I'm going to go with Buffalo here. I'm going to go 21-18. I'll give Buffalo a chance, but if they lose, I wouldn't be surprised. But it doesn't matter to me. We're going to be the 5, and we're going to be a team to watch for in the AFC. So that's all there is to say on that. 21-18, Buffalo beats the Jets. So, MF, how about it?
Now, I agree with everything you just said, and I'm going to go with Buffalo as well. I don't think it's going to be, I just don't know. I don't know what type of team we're going to get from Buffalo because, like you said, they're not necessarily going to play all their horses in this game. There's really nothing to really play for. You're locked into the 5. You can't go any more higher than that. So, I mean, could I see the Jets pull the upset? Absolutely. But I think Buffalo has enough and they'll get the job done. So I say Buffalo wins. Florio, go. Next game.
And this is a game that I believe does not have any playoff implications here. And it's a game that's been cross-flexed to Fox. This is a game that should be on CBS, but it's on Fox. The Cleveland Browns against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns won the earlier meeting this year. Cincinnati only has one win, and that obviously came against the New York Jets, I believe. So I did forget to mention, I forgot to mention really quick that when it comes to the Jets in Buffalo, actually, no, hold on. Well, I forgot to mention with the Jets in Buffalo, Tom McCarthy and Jay Feely will be your announcers for that game, and Buffalo was a 1.5 point favorite. I went a little out of order. New Orleans. The next game is really the New Orleans Saints against the Carolina Panthers. Now, MF, I think there is implications for this one.
There is implications. It's for New Orleans because there's a fight for the number 1 overall seed. So in New Orleans would need to win, and they would need, I believe, Green Bay and San Francisco both to lose. If that happens, then New Orleans will claim the number 1 overall seed, and all roads in the NFC playoff goes through New Orleans. But if if New Orleans win and Green Bay loses, then New Orleans goes to the 2 seed and they will lock up at least a first round bye. So there is a couple of scenarios for New Orleans. There's one to get the number 1, but there's also an opportunity for them to go to the 2, because right now they're locked in at number 3 going into the playoff picture as of right now.
All right. So I'll leave the playoff scenarios to MF because I know how much he loves to do the scenarios. He's done that for us every year on this show since we started it. So all right. So let me get into the other schematics when it comes to New Orleans and Carolina. Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte on Fox. New Orleans opening up as a 12.5-point favorite. Kenny Albert with Rondé Barber and Lindsey Czarniak. They will have the call. They met earlier in New Orleans in a game that was actually on CBS that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo did. And New Orleans came away with the win. So New Orleans, they have now cut into Carolina's series lead. It's now a one win affair. Carolina's lead is now 25-24 in favor of Carolina when New Orleans beat the Panthers in the Superdome. The Saints have won the last 2 meetings in Charlotte, an ugly 12-9 game last year and a 34-13 beatdown in 2017. Carolina hasn't beaten the Saints at home since 2016. And MF, I don't expect that to happen here.
No. And the mere fact is that they're playing for the number 1 seed. They're even playing for a 2 seed. They want the first round bye. So you're going to see Alvin Kamara out there. You're going to see Drew Brees out there. You're going to see Michael Thomas out there. For how long? I think they're going to be scoreboard watching as well. They're going to want to keep a close eye on Green Bay because they can't worry about San Francisco because of the fact that the San Fran game is so late in the afternoon. They're not going to be able to worry about that game. They can only handle their business and they got to handle what they got to do. They're going to beat Carolina and they're going to beat them pretty good. Defensively, I think they're going to be fine. Offensively, if Drew Brees starts slinging it like we know he is, it's going to be a long afternoon for Carolina. They just can't hang with New Orleans. So I think the Saints are going to win this game. But like I said, they're going to be scoreboard watching very carefully at Green Bay's game to see if they get the 2. Who knows? They might end up as number 1 if Seattle knocks off San Francisco. Then we're talking about possibly a first round, not only first round bye, but home field throughout. Whoa. So we'll wait and see what happens, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to go with New Orleans to win the game, and we'll go from there. So, Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, it may not seem like it, but the New Orleans Saints have plenty to play for in Week 17. Currently sitting at 12-3, they have the potential to earn a first-round bye, depending on how the rest of the final weekend's games play out. So, a win would be very helpful. It also helps that they'll be playing a Carolina Panther team that has been a dumpster fire this season. They've lost their last 7 games after looking like a contender early in the year and are coming off a miserable showing against the Indianapolis Colts. Put simply, they don't offer much of a threat. More than likely, the Saints will cruise to a win on Sunday, although I wouldn't expect to see them sit too many players in hopes of ensuring a victory. They shouldn't have too much trouble putting a hurting on the Panthers. That could lead to players like Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, and Alvin Kamara seeing the bench by the fourth quarter. It's time for a refresh in Carolina, as they'll look to turn things around during the offseason. This last loss of 2019 will symbolize their awful campaign and reemphasize the need for a new beginning in 2020. New Orleans rolls, no question about this one, 34-13. I got New Orleans beating Carolina. So nothing more to say. Now we're going to get into the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals from Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati on Fox. Brandon Gaudin, Robert Smith, and Megan O'Leary, they will have the call. And they met earlier this season. I do believe the Cleveland Browns won that game. So it cuts into Cincinnati's lead. Cincinnati leads the all-time series 50-42. Cleveland winning in Cleveland. The Browns actually swept last season, including a win in Cincinnati, 35-20. Bengals last beat the Browns at home the year before, 2017. That was a 30-16 final. So, not really much to get into here because, this is one of those games that has no implications whatsoever. Toss of the coin, actually, no, this is not a toss of the coin. This is an easy call here. It's the Cleveland Browns. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this one. So I'll get back to you with the final score, but I got Cleveland winning this game. So MF, obviously, no implications whatsoever with the Browns and the Bengals here. Well, obviously not for Cincinnati. They got the number 1 overall pick, but Cleveland, though, just playing for pride here and trying to, at least have a respectable year, even though they were the most disappointing team in the league hands down. 2.5-point favorites, Cleveland, by the way. So,
yeah, I'm going to go with Cleveland as well. I just don't see them making much of a headway here. I think it's going to be an interesting game, but like you said, I think Cleveland is just both teams are in such a disarray, and there's really nothing more to add there. So no, I'm with you, Anthony. I'm going to go with Cleveland, but I'm not as confident like everybody else is, but I'll give it to Cleveland. I think Cleveland will get the job done. I think they're going to win the game. There's really nothing more to add there. So yeah, Florio, it's yours.
Yes, and when it comes to this game, I have it closer than people think, but I'm going with Cleveland 24-23. That's my final. So, all right, now we can get back into a game that has playoff implications here. Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, Ford Field in Detroit on Fox. Kevin Burkhardt, Charles Davis, Pam Oliver, they will have it. And Green Bay, Green Bay opening up as a 12.5-point favorite. These two teams met earlier this season, a very controversial Monday night game, as we all remember. A game that many felt Detroit should have won, but because of horrific calls. But nonetheless, Green Bay won that game. So Green Bay now adds to their commanding lead over Detroit, 99-72 with 7 ties. And that win snapped a 4-game losing streak to the Lions, if you can believe it. And as a matter of fact, the Lions, they've actually won the last 2 years in Detroit. The Packers have not won in Detroit since 2016. That was a 31-24 final. But Detroit has beaten Green Bay at home each of the last 2 years. Now, MF, what are the implications for Green Bay? Obviously, number 1 seed.
Well, yeah. Last week they clinched the division, so it is theirs, and they won't have to worry about that. And for Green Bay, all they would need to do is just win and a 49ers loss, and they'll clinch the number 1 overall seed, and they will have home field throughout the playoffs. If they win, just a win alone will clinch them number 2. They'll get a first-round bye, and they'll be at least guaranteed a home game in the divisional playoffs. So really not much for Green Bay. They got the chance at number 1, but again, they would need Seattle to knock off the Niners. It's going to be an interesting game. I like their chances, so I got Green Bay winning this game, and there's really nothing more to add. So, Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, MF. Just like with the Carolina Panthers, the Detroit Lions, I mean, you can stick a fork in them. They're done. That's all there is to say on that. After taking care of the Vikings and locking up the NFC North, the Packers will be looking at securing a first-round bye this week. In order to do so, they'll need to take down a Detroit Lion team that has been abysmal for much of this season. Put simply, there's a little reason to believe the Packers won't take care of business. They're playing against a third-string quarterback with a defense that completely shut down Cousins and a Minnesota offense that had been on fire as of late. Aaron Jones is playing some outstanding football. Oh, and they've got Aaron Rodgers under center. With the divisional crown in hand, the Packers can get as high as the number 1 seed in the NFC by taking down the Lions. Seeing as that seems a near guarantee at this point, it looks like the NFC playoffs could go through Green Bay. is there really even anything to say about the Lions? Their offense hasn't been anything impressive this season, and the defense is a mess. Honestly, I would be surprised if they even kept this one within striking distance. The Packers really lucked up with this matchup in the final week of the regular season. 34-10, Green Bay all over Detroit. There's no question about that. So move on to our next game. And I do believe there is implications here. AFC West Division matchup, the Los Angeles Chargers squaring off against the Kansas City Chiefs. This will be at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon, they will have it. And they met earlier this season, and they met on a Monday night in Mexico, and I believe Kansas City won that game. So Kansas City now leads the all-time series 62-55 with a tie. And the Chargers actually won in Kansas City. MF, you and I remember this one. This was one of our favorite games last year. That infamous Thursday night game last year when the Chargers literally stole one in Kansas City, 29-28. But the Chiefs beat the Chargers last at home the year before, 2017, 30-13. So MF, Kansas City playing for seeding, I believe. What, the 3?
Well, actually, Anthony, there's a crazy scenario where they could get the 2, the 3, or the 4. So, all right, here's how it goes for Kansas City. If Kansas City wins and the Patriots lose, Kansas City gets the number 2 overall seed, which means first round bye and a guaranteed playoff game and Kansas City in the divisional round. If they win, if everything holds, they'll get to number 3. But be careful, Kansas City. Do not tread lightly. A loss and a Houston win, you drop to 4, and you got to run to the Buffalo Bills. So we'll wait and see what happens. So 2, 3, or 4, Kansas City could fall. Obviously, they would love to get the 2, but they would need a New England loss to Miami where you don't know how that could play out. And they would have to win their game against the Chargers. And oh, by the way, that's not a gimme either, because even though the Chargers are out of it, you know they love to play spoiler, and they have played spoiler on Kansas City before. So I think Kansas City will win the game because, you know, with Patrick Mahomes, with Travis Kelce, with all those guys, I think they're going to show up. They just can't afford a loss here. It's not a situation where, like with Buffalo, where if they lose, it doesn't hurt them because they'll be able to do whatever. They can't do that in this situation. A loss could hurt them. A loss will knock them back, and then they would have to play what I believe is a more tougher game against Buffalo than playing if it's like a team like Tennessee or Pittsburgh. You know, there's a crazy scenario on that, but you know, we'll wait and see what happens. So, Anthony, it's all yours.
Sorry, Chargers fans, but there's no way your team is going to win this game. Not that it really matters. The Chiefs are one of the hottest squads in the NFL right now as they're rolling over opponents with ease. Expect more of the same this week. It's not just the outstanding play of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City offense. Sure, the reigning MVP has been excellent in recent weeks, and targets like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are making his job all the easier. It's also the Chiefs' defense, which has been downright dominant down the stretch. There's just no way for Phillip Rivers and the Chargers to compete with that. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they failed to score many points at all. If you thought LA's performance against Minnesota 2 weeks ago was embarrassing, it could get even uglier against the Chiefs. Kansas City doesn't have a ton to play for, but a first-round bye is within reach of the New England Patriots' stumble against the Miami Dolphins. That's highly unlikely, but anything is possible in Week 17 when spoilers are out in full force. At least the Chiefs will do their part in bringing that to fruition by securing their 12th win of the season. Kansas City wins 37-10, easy win, no doubt about that. So move on to our next game, and it will be the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears squaring off against the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. On Fox, the legendary Dick Stockton, Mark Schlereth, and Jennifer Hale. They have the call, and Minnesota opening up as a 1.5-point favorite. These two teams met earlier this season at Soldier Field in Chicago, and the Bears won that game, as I recall. So it adds to Chicago's. Well, actually, no. Chicago cuts into Minnesota's lead a little bit. It cuts Minnesota's lead down to 60-54 with 2 ties. Bears have won 3 meetings in a row with the Vikings. That was in Chicago. Bears actually won in Minnesota last year, 24-10. Vikings' last win over the Bears at home was 2017, 23-10. MF, I know Chicago's not playing for anything, but is Minnesota playing for anything? They're playing for seeding, right?
Well, I think it's just for seeding. I don't see anything here. I think they would need Seattle to lose. And there's a chance that they could sneak into the number 5 spot. But other than that, there's really nothing else that they would need, that they would be able to play for here. So
No
basically,
No implications?
For Minnesota, basically they clinched. They're already in the playoff. So they're already in the playoffs. They got it. They're going to be in as the wild card. It's basically for more or less seeding. A win will help them. They would need San Francisco to knock off Seattle. Maybe they sneak into the 5, but that's the furthest it's going to be.
All right. So the Minnesota Vikings, they were dealt a painful blow on Monday night, being relegated to the 6th seed in the NFC while their offense was put on notice. They're still going to the playoffs, but were dropped a couple of notches after the Green Bay Packers demolished their offense. It would make perfect sense for the Vikings to phone it in on Sunday. They don't need the win, as they're set as the NFC's 6th seed no matter what happens. So, however, after the way the Green Bay loss went, they could use a momentum boost heading into the playoffs. And the Chicago Bears can provide exactly that this week. So I'm going to go with Minnesota. I'm going to say 29-23. I'm going to move it on here because I that's not really an implication game. Only implication games will get a little more details. So 29-23, I'm going to go with Minnesota. MF, what do you say?
That's fine with me. I got to go with Green. I'm going to go with Minnesota as well. As a matter of fact, Anthony, there is no implication for Minnesota. I just checked.
So. Okay, I thought so. All right. But for this next game that we're going to get into, oh, yeah, there is implications, most certainly. The Miami Dolphins squaring off against the New England Patriots, Gillette Stadium in Foxborough on CBS, 1 p.m. Greg Gumbel, Trent Green, Melanie Collins, they will have it. No spread. This is an NNA, but you would have to imagine New England's got to be a sizable favorite in this one.
Yep.
So, yeah, no doubt about this one. They met earlier this season, week 2. It was all New England all the time. I believe it was a 43-0 or so beatdown by the New England Patriots in Miami. So it cut the Dolphins' lead down to 54-51 in favor of Miami. They split last year. We all know the Dolphins won in Miami last year. We all know that. When it comes to Foxborough, it's been one-sided. Yeah, MF, you know. The Miami Dolphins have not won in Foxborough since week 3, 2008, the infamous Wildcat game. We all remember that. 38-13, Miami won in New England, but since 2009, it has been all New England in Foxborough against the Dolphins. Last year, it was a 38-7 beatdown for the Patriots. So MF, we know what the New England Patriots are playing for. They basically control their own destiny when it comes to that 2 spot.
Basically, a win or a Kansas City loss, and they got it. So basically, yeah, they'll win it. They'll win this game. Miami's got nothing to play for. They can't get the number 1. They can't get the number 1 draft pick. They're right now clinging to a top 5 pick where a loss will actually help them, but they won't get that much traction. They would need a miracle in order to get even a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. So I think Miami's going to settle with number 5. New England will win this game. And more importantly, this will help them get the first round bye. I got New England winning, so there's really nothing more to add. Floyo, go.
Yeah, fans everywhere would love to believe the New England Patriots could fall asleep and drop this one this week, but that will not be the case. With a first round bye on the line, expect Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and company to take this one seriously. Then again, they're playing the Miami Dolphins. They've been terrible for much of this year, with a prime example being their complete second half meltdown against the Bungles last weekend. Even if Ryan Fitzpatrick comes to play and they get some big plays from their defense, it shouldn't be nearly enough to slow down the Patriots. More than likely, the Patriots will focus on dominating the clock and keeping the ball away from Miami, run early and often, pick up yards consistently, and play smart. Tough defense. That's been their style for much of the year, and that figures to be the case again on Sunday. That should be more than enough to get them the win in the first round bye. It's been an embarrassing season for the Dolphins, who surprisingly managed to steal 3 wins over the last couple of months. Despite that, I don't see them making this game any sort of competitive, as the Pats will make it look easy. 27-9, New England beats Miami and locks up the number 2 seed in the AFC. So moving on, this game I know for a fact does not have any implications. It's our final 1 o'clock game. The Atlanta Falcons squaring off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. Tim Brando with Matt Millen and Sarah Walsh. They will have the call. These teams met earlier this season, and if I recall correctly, I think Tampa Bay won that game. Is that right?
Yes, they did.
I thought so. So, yeah, it's been a disappointing year for the Falcons, but with Tampa Bay's win, it cuts Atlanta's lead down to 27-25. And it snapped a 5-game losing streak to the Falcons for the Bucs when the Bucs stole one in Atlanta. But the Falcons have won the last 3 meetings in Tampa. Buccaneers haven't beaten the Falcons at home since 2015. So it's been a while since the Bucs won that beat the Falcons at home. Tampa Bay is opening up as a 1.5-point favorite. So no implications whatsoever when it comes to this one. Yeah, this is a tough one, if I'm going to be honest. But I'm going to take a chance, and I'm actually going to go with Atlanta. I mean, I was thinking about Tampa Bay, but I don't know. You got a feeling Atlanta's out for revenge here. So toss of the coin. I'm going to go with Atlanta 37-35. MF?
Yeah, no, I say the same thing. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Atlanta as well. So I got nothing else to say. So I got nothing more to add. Anthony, it's yours.
And now we go to the 425 games, and we start off with implications for, well, one team definitely has implications. The other is locked. Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Iron Eagle, Dan Fouts, Evan Washburn. They have it. Steelers opening up as 2.5-point favorites, which is really no surprise. They met earlier this season in Pittsburgh, and I do believe the Ravens won that one. So it cuts Pittsburgh's lead down to 25-22. So the Ravens won in Pittsburgh. I do know that. That is correct, right, MF? Ravens won in Pittsburgh?
That is true.
Yep. All right. Just wanted to be sure. Steelers have actually won the last 2 meetings in Baltimore, including a 23-16 win there last year. Now, MF, we know the Ravens, the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC will go through M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. They're locked as the number 1 overall seed. But Pittsburgh, they're playing to get in. They're in a dogfight with Tennessee.
Oh boy, and they sit back, get your pen and paper. There's a lot to dissect on this one, y'all. For Pittsburgh to get into the playoffs, they would need a win and a Tennessee loss or tie. So that's one. Number 2, they would need if Pittsburgh ties and Tennessee loses, then they're in, or a Tennessee loss Indy, yes, Indianapolis, it gets involved in this, and the Raiders, if they lose or tie, or Tennessee loss, Indy win, and Pittsburgh ties Oakland in the strength of victory. Now, the reason why there's going strength of victory, now here's the reason why. The strength of victory tiebreaker is involved if the following teams win. Now, these are all the teams: Minnesota, Green Bay, Kansas City, and Miami. If all that happens on the fourth scenario, the Tennessee loss, the Indy win, and all those teams wins, then Pittsburgh gets in through the strength of victory. And we're going to get into the Raiders because strength of victory comes in play with their scenario more than anything else. So basically, the nooks and crannies this. If Tennessee loses and Pittsburgh wins, then they're in. If Pittsburgh loses, not only are they out, but they open the door for another team to possibly get in. Not the Tennessee Titans, though. I'll explain that in a little bit. But I'm going to go with Pittsburgh because Baltimore has already made it very clear they're not going to play their starters. We already know for a fact Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, and I know a few defensive players are out. They've been inactive. They've been deactivated. They will not play on Sunday. We already know for a fact. I think Pittsburgh will now get the opportunity. I think they'll win and they'll at least have a shot to get into the playoffs. Anthony, it's yours.
Pittsburgh Steelers must win this week if they have any hope of making the playoffs. Following their loss last weekend, they are no longer in control of their destiny. However, winning this showdown with the Baltimore Ravens will certainly help their case. With that said, things seem to be falling in their favor, at least in regards to this game. After locking out the top seed in the AFC last week, the Ravens have no need to risk injury in this one. More than likely, a motivated Pittsburgh team will be playing against Baltimore's backups. That should open the door for a Steelers victory. That is assuming the Pittsburgh offense doesn't implode like it did this past Sunday. It routinely, and there were missed opportunities aplenty. Even against the Ravens' second-string defense, it won't be easy putting points on the board. And based on what we've seen from Robert Griffin III this year, Baltimore could enjoy significant offensive success. In the end, though, it seems likely the Steelers get the win this week. Unfortunately, that won't be enough on its own to move them into that final wildcard spot. That'll depend on what happens with the Tennessee Titans. More on that shortly. I got Pittsburgh winning this game as well. 23-21. Pittsburgh steals one in Baltimore against the Ravens. So with that being said, let's move on to our next 425 game. And there are implications here. Oh, yes, there are. For one team, anyways. NFC East divisional matchup. We have the Washington Redskins squaring off against the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews. They will have the call. And it is, I believe it's Dallas that is the favorite here. Oh, yeah, Dallas is a 10.5-point favorite. They met earlier this season in Washington. I believe the Cowboys won that game, as I recall. So it definitely adds to Dallas's lead against the Redskins in their all-time series history. Let's see. It is in favor of the Dallas Cowboys, 72-43 with 2 ties. That's the updated standings. Redskins won in Washington last year, 20-17, snapping a long home losing streak to the Cowboys. Cowboys' last win there was 2017. That was a 33-19 win. So I don't think I need to ask MF what the scenario is for Dallas. I think it's very simple. I'm taking a stab in the dark here. a win, and a Philly loss to the Giants, and they win the East. Is that right?
That's pretty. Yeah, you got it, Florio. There's no other scenario that they need, especially with Dallas. It's basically that you got to win, and basically a win and a Cowboy loss. An Eagle loss, and they got it. They'll clinch. So yeah, no doubt about it. This is the ultimate test. Dallas controlled their own destiny
last week,
but let it get away when they lost to Philly. When they lost to Philly, they lost their control of destiny. Now it's basically now they gotta some way somehow try to turn it around. Good luck with that. Nothing more to say. I think Dallas will win, but we'll go into the next game. So Florio, just go quick.
Yeah, it's a game that the Cowboys should absolutely win. So they just post too much offense for the Redskins to keep up. Dak Prescott should shred that secondary that has looked like Swiss cheese at times this year. If that doesn't work, Ezekiel Elliott should be able to get things going on the ground. Shouldn't be necessary, though, seeing as the Redskins were embarrassed by Daniel Jones last week. Washington should make somewhat of a game, make it a game worth watching, especially if the divisional crown is on the line. But as the game wears on, we'll see their shortcomings on the scoreboard. Cowboys win, improving their season record to 8-8. So 29-16, Dallas wins. And despite offering so much potential to start the season, the Cowboys will fall short and face a tumultuous offseason that could see the end of Jason Garrett's reign. And Derek Ferreira has been calling for his head. How long now?
For at least for a few years now, he's been asking for it to happen. But
I think this will be where it is.
I think this is the year. Yeah, I think that it's going to happen now,
even with the win. So I'm going Dallas 29-16. So nothing more to say on that. Move on. Oakland Raiders, Denver Broncos, Authority Field in Mile High. Over on CBS with Andrew Catalan and James Lofton, and the spread favors Denver. Denver opening up as a 3.5-point favorite. These two teams met, I believe, all the way back on opening night on that. I believe it was the second half of that Monday Night Football doubleheader, and as I recall, the Raiders won that one. Mm-hmm. So the Raiders add to their lead over Denver. It's now 64-52 with two ties. Raiders winning in the black hole. Here's the thing, though. The Raiders have not won in Denver since 2015. The Broncos have won the last three meetings at home. So MF, I know it's very slim, but Oakland, believe it or not, is still in the race, even though it's very bleak right now.
They would need, in poker, we call this the inside straight. They need to pull it. And it's not out of the realm of possibility. As a matter of fact, Florio, they would need to win the game. Pittsburgh would have to lose to Baltimore, which you never know, very possible.
Maybe.
Tennessee would have to lose to Houston, not out of the realm of possibility, very possible.
Absolutely.
Indy would have to win over Jacksonville, very possible. Then they would need one of the following teams in the strength of victory to win. And here are the teams: Chicago, Detroit, the Chargers, or the Patriots. Any one of those four that wins. And the Pittsburgh loss, the Tennessee loss, the Indy win, and an Oakland win gets the Raiders in the playoffs.
Wow.
It's unprecedented. It would be unheard of. I think the odds of this happening is very slim to none. However, I like the fact that they would need Pittsburgh to lose. To play against Baltimore, not a gimme. Tennessee, they got to play Houston. That's not a gimme. For Indy, they're playing Jacksonville. That's a very good possibility that could happen. Now, I don't know about Chicago because I think Chicago's playing
Minnesota.
Minnesota. That's tough. Detroit, they're playing Green Bay. I don't think that's happening. Chargers and the Chiefs, I don't see that happening.
Patriots.
New England.
There's your answer.
There's your answer. If the Patriots win, that goes to the strength of victory. If that happens with all the other scenarios, I think that is the most logical and plausible scenario for the Raiders. It's very possible it could happen. So we'll wait and see what happens. But could you imagine the Raiders in the playoffs after all that?
I wonder what your friend Ed Williams would think about that.
Oh my God.
What would your boy Ed Williams say?
I don't know. I don't even know what he would do. I honestly don't know. I would absolutely I would not even know what to say to him. I don't even know how to react.
Well, there's a friend through one of our many mutual dear friends, Jimmy Alden, a friend of his named Mitch Bullock. No relation to Michael Bullock, obviously, but Mitch Bullock is a diehard Raider fan, just like your boy Ed Williams, and I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I think he's a more hardcore fan than Ed Williams, although I know he's a hardcore fan too. But I can only imagine what Mitch Bullock would do if the Raiders were to somehow pull this thing out. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't see it happening. I'm sorry, because I actually don't have them winning this game, believe it or not.
Well, it is Denver at Mile High, so yeah, that's a very tough game to play.
Yeah, and yeah, surprisingly, the Raiders are still alive for that sixth spot in the AFC, and the odds are long of them sliding into that spot with a number of games needing to go in their favor. But the only one they can control is defeating the Denver Broncos in the regular season finale. Easier said than done. The Broncos waited too long to get hot. They've proven to be quite the problem for opponents in recent weeks. And that'll continue to be the case as they host the Raiders, who will not be able to pull off their end of the bargain in that equation that gets them into the playoffs. Raiders have been wildly erratic down the stretch, to put it lightly. Derek Carr is hot one game, freezing cold the next. Defense hasn't been at its best. Injuries continue to pile up. And going against a Bronco team that's clicking on both sides of the ball could be too much for Oakland to handle in what's likely their final game as the Oakland Raiders before they move to Vegas. By the way, have you seen that new stadium of theirs?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. Just the outside of it. I can't wait to see what the inside.
Yeah, they're not even done with the inside yet. They haven't even. I think they still got some stuff to do on the inside, but the outside of it looks absolute like. Wow. Oh my God!
Amazing.
Oh
right?
my God! Woo. Just marveling at that facility.
Amazing.
Vegas, you outdone yourselves, man. I mean, it looks incredible.
Yes, it does.
And I don't. Are they gonna? I know. Yeah. Nothing more to say.
Yeah, nothing more to say. The mix of Drew Lock and Phillip Lindsay will make life miserable for the Raiders defense, while the Broncos put enough pressure on Derek Carr to crack him. John Gruden missed the playoffs after what was supposed to be his signature offseason, and now the calls for his job will start to rain down from the new fan base in Vegas. Denver wins. My final score 24-14. So MF, do you agree, disagree?
No, I agree. I'm gonna go with Denver as well. I really got nothing more to add. So Florio, it's yours.
All right, and we move on. Well, this is the big game for CBS. 4:25, that is. Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans, NRG Stadium in Houston. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson. Hello, friends. And Tennessee is actually opening up as a 4.5-point favorite. These teams just met 2 weeks ago in Nashville. MF and I should know we had it. And it was Houston that came away with the win. And with that win, the series history between these two is now tied. It's 17-17. So whoever wins this game will take the series lead. Tennessee actually won Houston actually won in Nashville for the first time in 4 years, 2015. But this game's in Houston. Houston's won the last few meetings there. Tennessee, I gotta see, when was the last time Tennessee actually won in Houston? We gotta go. We gotta go all the way. Wow, we gotta go all the way back to 2011. 2011. That's the last time Tennessee stole one in Houston. So Houston has owned Tennessee at NRG Reliant Stadium. So that's all there is to say on that. Now, MF, there's implications for both teams. Houston's playing for seeding while Tennessee controls their own destiny of getting in.
Well,
Not really.
for Houston, I don't see anything, but I do believe that for Houston, I think the only scenario is just seeding purposes. And again, if they win and Kansas City loses, then Houston jumps up to the 3. Kansas City drops to the 4. So yeah, there's a seeding purpose.
Yeah.
But for Tennessee, it's everything. So a win and they're in, no doubts. If they tie and Pittsburgh loses, they're in. Or if for any reason Pittsburgh loses and Indy loses, because that would negate Oakland. So no matter what happens at that point, even a loss, and they're in. So basically, again, Indianapolis comes into play because they might control who gets in at the end. But I think Tennessee's going to win because I just don't think Houston's really that interested, because either way they got to play on Wild Card Weekend. They got the guaranteed home game. So I don't think they're going to be at that point, at that big of a rush. And on top of that, with Kansas City, we'll wait and see what happens, but I don't think there's that much of a concern. So I think Tennessee's going to win it, Anthony. I think Tennessee's going to the playoffs.
Very likely, but I'm a little iffy. I mean, because right now the Tennessee Titans control their own destiny. Even if the Steelers beat the Ravens, the Titans can still secure the 6th seed in the AFC with a win over the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening in the final week of the regular season. Why? Well, for starters, the Texans will come into this hoping to improve their seeding ahead of the first round of the playoffs. Although the 4th seed seems most likely at this point, an upset of the Kansas City Chiefs by the LA Chargers would open the door for the Texans to steal the 3rd seed. Plus, wouldn't they love the opportunity to slam the door on their division rivals for the second time in 3 weeks? The Titans will come to town with dreams of postseason on their minds. They'll be playing some motivated football. While that may be the case, I don't see them supplanting the Texans, especially on the road. They dropped the ball against them 2 weeks ago with home field advantage, and now they've got an even larger hurdle to clear. Deshaun Watson makes easy work of the Titans secondary, putting up monster numbers while DeAndre Hopkins does his usual thing. Once time starts to become a factor, the Texans ride Carlos Hyde and bump their AFC South foes from the running. So I disagree, MF. I'm going with Houston to win this game, 31-23, especially after what we saw a couple weeks ago in Nashville. So I'm going to go with Houston 31-23. Next up. Now, it's very surprising that this game is in the 425 window and not in the 1 window, because there's really no implications for this one. The Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars from Everbank Field in Jacksonville, Spiro Ditas out of Marshalletta will have the call for that one. And Indianapolis opening up as a 3.5-point favorite. They met in Indianapolis, and I believe Indianapolis won. Am I right? So Indianapolis leads the all-time series 24-13. But the Jaguars have won the last few meetings in Jacksonville. Indianapolis hasn't won there since 2014. So that's all there is to say there. So MF, I know there's no implications here, so we're just going to give a quick thought. Who do we like here?
I'm going to go with Indianapolis. I think they're going to win the game. Nothing more to say. Florio, go.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to get a final score here. 27-17, Indianapolis over Jacksonville. So Nothing more to say there. Let's move on. Um, all right, implications here, big time. Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands, East Rutherford, New Jersey. Tom Brenneman, Chris Spielman, Shannon Spake, and the Eagles opening up as 4.5-point favorites. These teams met a few weeks ago on a Monday night in Philadelphia, and the Eagles very lucky to win that game. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, many felt the Giants should have won that game, but no, Philly, they got the breaks and it opened the door and it gave them the win. So now Eagles now lead the series. It was tied, but now Philly leads it 84-83 with 2 ties. And they have won now 6 in a row against the Giants. And the Eagles have won the last 2 years in the Meadowlands. Giants last beat them at home in 2016, but the Eagles 27-24 in 2017 and a 34-13 beatdown. MF, the scenario is very simple. Philly controls their own destiny. All they have to do is just win, baby, and they win the division again.
Exactly. No doubt about it. And I think they're going to do it. I think after that win, after they knocked off the Cowboys last week, I don't see anything stopping Philly from not winning this division. I'm gonna openly I'm gonna openly admit it, and I'm gonna openly say it. I do believe the Philadelphia Eagles is going to win the division. They will be your division champions, and I got nothing else to add. So, Anthony, it's all yours. Philadelphia wins the NFC East.
I agree. I mean, yes, they're hurting right now, Philly. The injuries they began piling up as the season progressed, and it's reached a head as we move into the final week of this season. Can they muster enough across the board to beat the Giants and win the division? It seems very likely, even with so many factors going against them. They're nearly devoid of offensive weapons outside of Carson Wentz, although Jordan Howard should be available this week. While the offense may be in shambles, though, the Philly defense is holding firm, evidenced by their impressive performance against the Dallas Cowboys last week. That doesn't mean the Giants will go down easy, though. Despite their underwhelming record, the New York offense has done well with Daniel Jones running the show, especially that surprising 5-star classic against the Redskins in a Zonk game. Go figure. Chances are the passing game will find the end zone at least a couple of times, putting even more pressure on Wentz to keep up on the scoreboard. And when it all comes down to it, though, the Eagles have the edge. They should make enough plays on defense to keep Jones in check, while Wentz gets enough help from his playmakers to get the win. Sorry, Cowboy fans, but your team misses out as a result. And we'll get another Derek Ferreira hotline. Fire Jason Garrett. This team is trash. Blah, blah, blah. I got Philly winning, but it will be closer than people think. 20-17. Philly pulls it out, wins the NFC East. And we have one other game here with no implications here. Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Rams, Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum in Los Angeles. Rams opening up as 7.5-point favorites. They met earlier this season in Arizona. And MF, I believe the Rams won that one?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. So, tough to keep up, especially with all these being divisional games. So, with the Rams win, it's 40. The book that I have obviously with a typo here. So, I believe it's like 40-39 with 2 ties, or it might be the other way around. But, anyways, I'll look more into it in just a minute. But it snapped. Well, the Rams actually have won 5 in a row against the Cardinals. They swept last year. They swept the year before. Cardinals last won in LA in 2016, a 44-6 beatdown. So there's really not much to get into here when it comes to this one. I'll go with obviously I'm going to go with the Rams here. I'm going to go 35-21. But MF, very disappointing for the Rams. I mean, they were one of the odds-on favorites to win the NFC, but man, oh man, what a disappointment.
Just to give you a heads up, Florio, it's actually 42-38-2 Rams ahead.
Rams?
And that is including Rams, yeah.
Okay.
So that's also including the one game that they did play earlier in the year, which was is actually and the Rams crushed them 34-7.
Yes.
So, but I'm gonna go with the Rams as well. I got really nothing more to add there.
Well, I think we all know what's coming up next now. Oh, are we ready for this? The main event. Hands down, the game of the week when it comes to week 17. Oh boy, batten down the hatches. The San Francisco 49ers squaring off against the Seattle Seahawks, CenturyLink Field in Seattle. Sunday Night Football on NBC. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya. 49ers opening up as 3.5-point favorites. They met earlier this season on a Monday night in San Francisco. And man alive, what a game it was. It was a 5-star classic. And it was so entertaining that we actually broke into the Wrestling Forum, Ridiculously Raw, to give you coverage of this game, believe it or not. That's how good it was. And in the end, it was the Seattle Seahawks winning in San Francisco. So Seattle now adds to their all-time series lead. It's now 25-16. And Seattle, they have owned the Niners at home for the last few years. San Francisco has not won in Seattle since 2011. 2011, the last time the Niners won in Seattle. Since then, it's been all Seattle at home, including that epic NFC Championship game many years ago. So the scenarios, well, it's very simple. MF, I'm going to see if I remember this correctly. I already know what it is for San Fran. All they have to do is win, and then the number one seed in the NFC, correct?
Yes.
And for Seattle, they win the NFC West, and how would that impact their seeding if they win?
Okay, here's the factor on Seattle, because they actually have a chance at number one. Here's how it has to go. If they win the NFC East, the NFC West, and they would become the number 3 seed overall. If they win and Green Bay loses, they go to the number 2 seed, first round bye, and a guaranteed home game at CenturyLink Field in Seattle in the divisional round. Now, if they win, Green Bay loses, and New Orleans loses, Seattle gets number 1 all to themselves. So there's a lot that can break down here, but I say Seattle wins. They claim the NFC West, but they're not getting any more further than that.
No, especially after that. What was that last week? Arizona? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, that, oof. Yikes.
Hoofa.
Yeah.
That's a hoofa. That's no doubt about it. That's my
You literally controlled your own destiny. You literally controlled your own destiny, had a chance to get to probably the 2 or the 1 without the help, and you shoot yourselves in the foot by losing to Arizona.
They looked past them.
They did.
Very simple.
They did.
Arizona? We're like, we don't need to do anything. Arizona
they did.
Sucks. We're at home. It's Arizona. We're double-digit favorites. We're gonna beat the pants off them.
Whoops.
Yeah. You picked a great time to lay an egg. That's all there is to say on that. You literally laid a. Oh my gosh! But here's the thing, though. MF and I, we're making history here, because it's not often we go to the other side, but for this 1 week only, and considering that cross flexing is a big thing nowadays, we're pulling the trigger. We're doing it. This is our game right here, and we've done it before. We've done NFC games before. It's been a while, but What a great! I don't think we've done any NFC games this year, but what a great time to do one now. Oh. Seattle Seahawks are in some sort of position right now. After losing their top 3 running backs to season-ending injuries, they were forced to call upon a familiar name to save the day. Yes, Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, has come out of retirement again to help the Seahawks this week. Will it be enough to secure a victory against the San Francisco 49ers, securing the NFC West crown and potentially a first-round bye in the process? It's possible, but you better believe the 49ers will come ready to shut down the aging running back. Then again, anything is possible when Lynch is involved and playing against Seattle's rivals. Realistically, though, this one should actually come down to Russell Wilson. Facing off against a fearsome San Francisco defense, it'll be up to the MVP caliber quarterback to keep the points flowing for Seattle and keep the ball out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. If he can do that, the Seahawks stand a real chance of getting the win. With the 12s at their back, the 12th man, the Seahawks should be able to get the win here this week. They'll need help to get the first round bye as well. But even then, they'll jump up to the number 3 seed with a possibility of taking on a reeling Vikings team in the wild card round. I'm going with Seattle to win. Another 5-star classic. My final score, 31-27, Seattle over San Francisco. They win the NFC West and come whatever may after that. So that'll do it for this special Football Thursday Strictly Sports football show here tonight. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in. And we're going to bring in good old MF Michael Fletcher because we got the Cerebral Smack Talk tomorrow night. MF, huge triple threat main event. Daniel Bryan, The Miz, King Corbin. The winner will challenge the Fiend Bray Wyatt for the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. But also breaking news that MF has reported. Madison Square Garden house show tonight. History made. Andrade is the new United States heavyweight champion, defeating Rey Mysterio. You know we're going to address that come Monday night on Ridiculously Raw. But for right now, MF, come on in. Let's set the table for tomorrow night, the Cerebral Smack Talk. I mean, you got a big money match of your own with Bryan, Miz, and Corbin squaring off to determine who's going to face the Fiend for the Universal title at the Royal Rumble.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be an amazing show. It's going to start at 10:30 tomorrow night. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So we definitely got that. I might talk about a little bit of NWA Power. Man, oh man, what a show that was this week. A lot of storylines was built. It was their Christmas holiday special too. So we're going to get into that as well. And like I said, we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. So 10:30 tomorrow night. Really nothing more to say. Anthony, take it home.
All right, we'll put the bow on it. You heard MF. Tomorrow night, 10:30, Friday night, Cerebral Smack Talk with MF. We'll run down SmackDown Live. We'll see if we get into that Mikey's mindset. And then Monday, we'll get into Ridiculously Raw. We'll address the big news from tonight with Andrade becoming the new United States heavyweight champion, beating Rey Mysterio at Madison Square Garden. Big moment there. I can't wait to get into that on Monday. That we will not have Wednesday Night Mayhem as a result of New Year's Day. That's a holiday, so that's part of our holiday decree. Next week on this program, it'll be another Football Thursday show. We're going to preview all 4 NFL wildcard games, and we will also preview the College Football Playoff National Championship game as well. And then we do it all again. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, it's Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, Edie Woodson, and always and forever, Derek Ferrera. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, keep on watching this very special edition of Strictly Sports Football Thursday right here on the Tone 25 on StreamYard and YouTube.com. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long. And bye, everybody. Bye.